So you want to carry your Marvel Rivals games as Groot. This is a comprehensive guide from a 30+ hour Groot main on how to dominate lobbies as your favorite house plan. First off, Groot is an amazing tank, standing at a mighty 850 health, and possibly 1100 which we'll get into later. He is easily one of the best tanks as of right now. But there are 5 main things you need to know to truly unlock his full potential. His DPS or kit understanding, wall placement, ult usage, positioning, and counters. Let's start with DPS. By this I mean the damage that Groot can do and how his kit works. Groot's primary fire is his Vine Strike, left mouse button or your right trigger. It's a 70 damage projectile, it has 8 charges and a 0.7 second delay between uses, and up to 20 meter range. Groot's attack may look like a melee strike, but it's actually a no headshot multiplier projectile attack, and Groot shouldn't really have to reload. Mr. Fantastic, Venom. Groot's secondary fire, his right click or left trigger, is his Spore Bomb. It is a single cast projectile with a downward delay that creates a spell field. When the Spore Bomb lands, it will explode into 6 explosive spores, the initial impact doing 55 damage, and the individual spores each doing 10. It has a 6-second cooldown and is one of the main abilities Groot should use for combos on single targets or chip damage on grouped up enemies. Now this is where Groot really starts to shine, his walls. Groot has 2 types of walls, his shift or left bumper Thornlash wall, and E/right bumper Ironwood wall. These walls are activated when Groot is nearby. You can see the circle on the ground that indicates when Groot is in the 20 meter activation range of his walls. When he is, the walls will do a small animation and slightly change. The real utility of Groot walls comes when they are active. Let's start with the Thornlash wall. This is Groot's main assisting source of damage, a 250 health mini wall. When placed in active, if an enemy is within 5 meters of it, and you or someone on your team attacks them, it will do an additional 60 damage every 0.05 seconds, making Groot's boosted strike do a total of 130 damage. This is not a single target attack, however. If many enemies are grouped up near your wall, they will all take the additional 60 damage even if you only dealt direct damage to one. Thornlash walls can be placed up to 18 meters away, have 2 charges with each charge recharging in 6 seconds, and you can have a total of 3 walls up at one time. Next, let's talk about the Ironwood wall. The Ironwood wall is a 700 health, larger wall that is Groot's biggest tool for survivability. When active, it gives you 40 health per strike on a 0.5 second cooldown to a maximum of 250 extra health, or in other words, 1100 total health. It has a 10 meter max placement distance and 8-second cooldown. Groot's main combo will be to place a Thornlash wall, throw a Spore Bomb, and then Vine Strike. Next, let's talk about Groot's V or right stick ability, his Furious Flora melee attack. This melee is one of the few unique melees in the game. Its first 2 strikes do 30 damage with a 3 meter range, but the third strike is an overhead strike that does 50 damage with a 4 meter range and knockup effect. Finally, what we've all been waiting for, the ultimate. Groot's ultimate, Strangling Prison, is a single cast spellfield downward delay projectile. The projectile itself does 10 damage, and the following explosion that pulls people in does an initial 8 meter range of 70 damage on impact, and 20 damage every 0.5 seconds that it holds them. This perfectly lines up with your Thornlash walls, meaning just having your ult doing damage next to a wall will already maximize that wall's damage per second. This, obviously, shouldn't be the case. With you and your team's attacks in there, along with the walls and the ultimate, Groot's ult can end up being one of the most deadly in the game. Now that you understand how his walls work, let's really dive into how they can be used. His Thornlash walls can be placed on most surfaces, either horizontally or vertically. Ideally, if you are setting up before a fight, you want his walls to be in a not obvious place, but still somewhere that there will be a lot of action and get a lot of value. Like here on Shin Shibuya, people are not frequently going to look back at your walls to destroy them, so they can get an extra 60 damage to 90% of attacks that go into this choke. One of the main ways you will use your walls will be to solo out target. One of Groot's greatest abilities is the ability to cut an opponent off from their team. With Groot being the tankiest character in the game, most solo DPS, not all, but most, will not want to bother with trying to kill Groot on their own, so out of instinct they will back up to return to their team, but right behind them, boom, a Groot wall. They fell right into your trap and now they have to pay. Ceiling walls are one of the best things that Groot can do. As many players do not look up before pushing a point, sadly, this can lead to a devastating amount of damage if they can't remove them in time. Your ironwood walls can be used in two main ways. You can put it off to the side for a more push-heavy survivalist playstyle, to give yourself as much health as possible, or in a utility-based, better in my opinion way, to cut yourself off from their team or block ultimates. Positioning is one of the most overlooked parts of every character, but especially Groot. As the tanky tree you are, you want all of their attention focused on you and away from the backline if you can. You are a frontline tank, and even though you can be of great help against divers and solo squishies, you want to be the focus of the entire opposing team. Groot's walls can greatly throw off the positioning of their team, forcing healers to take worse off angles to heal, and giving your team more chances to advance or hold. If you can place an annoying wall in the middle of their team, yeah, it might give you a little extra damage, but the real value comes from after the damage is done, where any smart player on their team will want to focus on destroying the Groot wall instead of focusing on your team, or even better, healing their team. Counters are a huge problem for Groot. Yes, he's an amazing hero, but everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. Groot's main weakness being Wolverine. This abomination of a creature will kidnap you, take you to his dungeon, and punish you for ever considering playing Vanguard. Groot is easily the worst tank against Wolverine. His low mobility makes it impossible for him to escape if Wolverine is able to catch you. The main reason this works is Wolverine's percentage damage. That lets him completely ignore your huge amount of health, and instead do what the tank killer does best, killing tanks. Another one of Groot's larger counters is flyers. Iron Man, Storm, and Human Torch. Not as much as so they counter him, more so that he can just not do anything against them. Usually they will be out of range of your primary, and it's not like you can place your walls in the air. Hit scan and sniper characters like Hela, Hawkeye, and Black Widow are all in the same boat. They don't directly counter Groot, it's just not a lot that he can do to counter him. Then there's Bucky. I hate Bucky. Now, one of the biggest things that Groot counters is Penny. Groot has the ability to destroy or at least deactivate any, with the exception of the infinite ammo team-up, ground-based objects by placing a wall under it. Some of these may include Penny Nests, Moon Knight Onks, and Rocket's respawn beacon and ultimate. Groot counters the Thing very well too, as if a Thing dives your backline without thinking, you can easily wall him off from his team and get a free pick. Surprisingly, if you aren't looking to use your ult, Groot counters Strange pretty well as well, because Groot can place his walls behind Strange and do damage from behind while Strange is trying to stop the damage from the front, and with the recent nerfs to his health, this is a surprisingly effective tactic. Finally, to wrap this video up, I've compiled some tips and tricks to use and some common mistakes that I've seen so that you know what you're doing wrong and how to change it to become a god at Groot. First off, Groot can change the angle of his walls for better positioning. For example, if you wanted to get the high ground, you can put that Fortnite experience in play as you grank 90s all over the unsuspecting Luna. Continuing with this idea of Groot movement, you can actually place two walls directly under you to get high up quickly. Do this by looking directly down while your shift is toggled. Hold down your left click or right trigger, and walk over the projected wall until you see a second one appear above. Then release and enjoy your new wooden tower. For that trick you need to use double walls, one of the most overlooked tricks that Groot can do. Just imagine having a Thornlash wall the size of your ironwood wall. All you need to do is hold down left click or right trigger and flick your camera in the direction that you want to place it. I wouldn't get in the habit of doing this all the time, but it can be very useful in certain scenarios. Another thing that I slightly mentioned was setting traps. Groot is great for that. Just place a few walls where the other team won't expect it, and sit back and watch the results. Groot has a melee animation cancel that I show here, and it is really good for getting extra damage in if you are really close. Place Groot walls when your Cloak and Dagger ults. This clip is more reasoning than needed. Groot is a utility tank. Most people don't realize that. If you know how to do it correctly, Groot can block ults as effectively as Strange and Magneto. I put together a few clips showing this. Some common mistakes I have seen many Groots do is not using their walls on the offensive. You'd be surprised at how many Groot players don't even know the biggest part of their kit and only use their walls for blocking sightlines and escaping. Another thing you should know if you are doing a Groot on Groot fight is to just keep pushing the opposing Groot. They can only place their walls so close, and if you press them enough, they will end up trying to retreat and back right into your wall. And my final and most important tip that is guaranteed to win you every single game no matter what You want to start by holding up one of your walls but not placing it down. Then walk to somewhere that you cannot move forward or sideways so you are completely stopped. Then, slowly tap W. This is most effective with the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 skin, but is still going to win you every single game regardless.